What's up, guys? Welcome to I guess we're in the September Tidal Gardens YouTube live show. Hope you guys are having a good weekend. I don't really have a ton planned for this weekend other than this show and watching football. I want to keep this as low-key as possible this weekend. It's been a really, really busy week, so it'll be nice just to actually get some chilling done. So that starts in part with this show. So real quick, before we get any further into this, we like to start about 10 minutes early. The choral portion of the show will start at pretty much 2 p.m. sharp Eastern, and it'll give us some time just to make sure that the audio and the video and all that stuff is working out okay. So if you could, in chat, let me know if you guys can hear me okay, if I need to turn it up or down. Generally speaking, this sort of thing runs mostly smoothly, knock on wood. So anyway, before we get too far into this, real quick thank yous. So thank you to our two corporate sponsors. We got Ecotech Marine and we have Polyp Lab. And then some of you generous folks on both Patreon and YouTube. So real quick, from Patreon, we've got Angela Sherman, Big Lord Chi, Brandy Camp, Harkins Aquatics, Jeremy Altman, aka 2 Please, Scott Williams, Elaine Martinassi, Alan Jackson, Ann Lewis, Chuck Admire, Ernie Wallace, Greg Bauer, Greg Zimmerman, Jordan Marty, Keith Singer, Kyle Jameson, Lisa Clow, that's Lacree Fine Art, Lynn Holt, Puddle Aquatics, Ryan Baker, Skylar Korn, Sue Hemmons, Thomas Tarrant, and Tim Garner. And on the YouTube member side of the equation, we've got Steven13, Mike Downey, Keith Holland, Terry Kuhn, Stories Reef, Herb777, Justin Harden, and Ohio Ventures. Thank you all so much. And thank you guys for hanging out with me. We have something like 200 and almost 250 corals to go through. Right off the bat, there's a little bit something different about this edit. Before, I would actually show a little thing that says that there's like multiples of these corals available for purchase, meaning that that particular thing shown is not a what you see is what you get. Over time, we tended to do that with just about every coral on the show, so it was much more uncommon for something to be a what you see is what you get, because pretty much everything had that multiple of these items available. So pretty much I took that away, and you're just going to go ahead and have to assume that everything that we're selling is not what you see is what you get. It is just a stock image or a stock video that we're showcasing, and going off of that, because it was like over 80-something% was just that type of format. If you are new to this live program, the way that this works, if you wanted to purchase anything, you go to tidalgardens.com and there is a live sale link, or you could just go to tidalgardens.com/live. There's an FAQ there if you wanted to dig down into any specific questions, but long story short, it is flat shipping. I don't know exactly what the number is currently. It might be $39.99, it might be a little bit more, I'm not sure. We raised it recently. But in order for you to actually get the coral, you have to complete the checkout process, because just having corals in your shopping cart does not reserve the coral for you. You have to finish the checkout process. Now, when you are checking out, you might want to do so multiple times. In order for you to avoid that flat shipping fee on multiple orders, there's an option to add to an existing order, and that'll reduce the shipping to 0. And when we start to prepare the packages, we will accumulate all of your orders and ship it as one. So that's kind of how that all works. All the different items, they're treated like any other item that's on the website. You just put into your shopping cart and check out. So anyways, you guys, good. Please, you've been like a Patreon member forever, but it has been a really long time since I've seen you in chat. So welcome back. Good to see you again. Be the Fountain, that's Brandy. If you have seen some of my more recent videos, we started to do a little series going over scientific journals. And so that's Brandy Camp. So thank you for joining, Brandy. And let's see, Lincoln Towns, hello. Courtney Jameson, Banzi29A, Amar Sharaf, hello, hello, hello. And Tavertine Pico. Early birds, right? Early birds. All right, let's just get into some of the questions, and the choral portion of the show will be starting pretty soon here. Lincoln, I just upgraded my lights from 3 AI primes to Radeon XR15s, F15 blues specifically. Do you think I'll be seeing a big improvement? I can't imagine it'll be a big improvement. They're very similar lights. We don't have a lot of AI primes here. I think we've only got a couple, and we're not really using them for coral husbandry, so to speak. Like, we're using them as task lighting here and there. Sometimes when we're working with corals, we'll use those lights, but we don't have them actually over any tanks. Now, just in my I guess recent memory of them, they seemed a little bit dimmer than the XR15s. So you might see some improvement there. Your mileage may vary. So both Aqua Illumination and Ecotech, they're all owned by like the same company. I don't know how different their lighting really is going to be. Brandy, though, looks like she has switched from AIs to Radeons. And it was positive, so there you go. Courtney, I'm having a Seriatopora explosion in my 210, snipping branches when they get too close to Acropora. How do I go about getting the encrusties off? Polyps keep on going everywhere like little weeds. That's kind of an issue that you're going to run into when you're successful keeping pretty much any coral. So unfortunately, yeah, it becomes like gardening. You just kind of have to kind of put in like the labor at that point. It's all elbow grease at that point. Okay. Banzi29. What are your thoughts on Copepod hotel things folks 3D print and sell? So pretty much any kind of structure that's going to prevent like fish and other predators from getting at them is going to work. So sometimes it's as simple as like there's like something called polycarbonate structural sheet. It's basically it's hard to explain, but it's like a sheet, but it's like not perforated. It's got like cells in it, like channels. And if you just like chop those things up and then just kind of like glue them together, just their ability to hide in those channels protects them, and they can breed like crazy. Okay, real quick before I forget, we are going to be starting the thing over, and I have to do the transition. So in one of our tanks, the pods have gone completely bonkers, and they reside like on the underside of plugs. So you just like lift up a plug, and there's like 20 copepods down there, or amphipods. So anything works. You just have to give it a chance. So to answer your question more directly, will the 3D printed stuff work? Absolutely, but so will just about anything else. Okay, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Okay, so like I said, there's going to be just less than 250 some odd coral. So that should take us to a little bit like roughly 5 o'clock Eastern. No, 4 o'clock Eastern, something like that. We'll see. Okay, Serge. Hi, I was lucky to get the hyper watermelon chalice and was amazed at the feeding response, which was more than the echinata. I'm guessing an achian echinata. What I had learned was that chalice do not have a feeding response. Okay, so here's the thing. Chalices is like saying, how would I describe that? There are so many things under chalices that you can't really draw a ton of parallels. Like there's certain things that are kind of similar, like maybe echinopora and oxypora, but for the longest time, like lithophyllin was in that category, and lithophyllin is basically like a fungia plate coral now. So you're going to get wildly different feeding responses, wildly different preferences for light, for types of food, all kinds of things. And so like a hyper watermelon chalice, yeah, you can definitely feed those things. Here, we're feeding a little bit less than normal, because what we're running into is when we go crazy with feeding, a lot of like the other filter feeders in the water column, they go completely bonkers, and we want to kind of get that better under control. Also, I think that we were feeding too aggressively once we started back into it. And so like, for example, Polyp Lab is one of our sponsors. We like their food. There's also like a few other different types of powdered foods, and they're extremely nutrient rich. And anytime that you have an extremely nutrient rich food, you can kind of like burn corals out, and they just don't respond well. So it's almost like going lighter with it is preferential. So if you're going to feed, a little bit goes a long way. Woody's gamer tag. Business question. Your farm seems to be filled with cost no object equipment. Do you find that buying top of the line stuff is a smart business decision, or is it an inner gear nerd? So some of it is professional curiosity, right? But because at some point there are some very real differences in quality. Like, so for example, an Ecotech pump. Ecotech pumps are pretty good. If you're willing to spend a whole lot more, you can get an Abyss pump. Now, performance-wise, the Abyss is going to move a little bit more water. When you take those two pumps apart, they could not be more different. I mean, like, an Ecotech is like a prosumer, like upper end, for a hobbyist. It's a hobbyist pump. And Abyss is ridiculously built. I mean, if you needed another like impeller for an Abyss, it's $700, and it is every bit of like this giant aluminum block. It's very impressive, and I can't imagine why you would need another impeller, but if you needed one, it is that much. Also, just like the titanium screws on it, for some reason I had lost a set, and I went to order like grade 5 titanium screws on Amazon. They're $100 for these little titanium screws on Amazon. Luckily, Alex from Abyss was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll send you the right ones." And I returned the ones from Amazon. But I was like, geez, like, so sometimes you hit these thresholds where that company's not playing around. Where that comes into play for a business that is trying to scale is you almost have to get into the mindset that at any given time, some piece of equipment is breaking down and failing. So if it's like your home aquarium, there might be a dozen devices. It might seem really complicated. There might seem like a lot going on, controllers and whatever else, like whatever is fancy, right? When you're talking about like a big facility, there's so many points of failure now that if I can spend a ton of money up front and know that that is going to be like the most rock solid solution where I don't have to like fiddle with stuff. I can just count on it to work. That is worth its weight in gold, because you can even like schedule stuff where it's like, oh, I'm going to go through a progression and soak the every pump in acid for a couple hours every single day, like clockwork on a calendar. Great. But now you're paying somebody to do that. It is a lot of effort in your day to day, and I guess that saves you money in pump replacements and in some wear and tear and maintenance stuff. But it is an expensive proposition. So one way or another, you are paying. Sometimes though, an expensive piece of gear is just expensive and there's no tangible benefit, and that is where like professional curiosity goes wrong. It's like sometimes it just doesn't work out. It happens. But when it does work out, it certainly changes my business decision making. We have tons of a biz. I would love to get a lot more, but if you guys know like the price point of a biz, the wholesale price is just a little bit less. It never becomes affordable. I was going to say it's never going to be cheap, but that doesn't even fully illustrate it. It never really becomes affordable. It is always going to be a ridiculously expensive purchase. And I need 30 more of them or something like that. Minimum 10 more. I could use a lot more. So yeah, do the math on that. It's a lot. So we're very slowly incorporating it. Side point, and I might touch on this later, but we're getting some MRC protein skimmers made. Shout out to Raj at MRC. We were basically under skimming to a comical degree. Now his skimmers, there is an option to use, instead of the MRC skimmer pump, you can modify an Abiz to be the skimmer pump. It doubles the price of the skimmer. And if you know MRCs aren't cheap either. So yeah, I opted for 2 of those with the Abiz upgrade, because that is how much I believe in certain high-end products. Okay. That was a long answer to your question, but hopefully you got some info out of that. Lincoln, the primes can't put out enough par in my opinion. I kind of felt they were a little bit dim myself, but depends on the size of the tank. I mean, I was trying to like light up a big 4-foot long thing. I think if you had like a much smaller aquarium, it's probably fine. Going back to the pod hotels, B has them. I don't think they ever opened up to see how many pods are in it. When pods find their little happy place, they go crazy. Definitely go crazy. Can you talk about bad bacteria and harm that it has on acros? So yeah, long story short, there could just be latent bacterial issues with Acropora. Nobody really knows like what causes RTN or STN, but that is a problem that can just like hang around for a very long time. Just about everybody that has Acropora runs into it at one point or another. It's very common. Lincoln, how much par do you keep your corals under? It's a range. It's anything from like 50 to 300. It kind of depends. Corals are adaptable. There's some corals that are going to appreciate much higher lighting, and it really just depends on what you're trying to keep. Unless a coral requires a ton of light, I don't mind giving them quite a lot less, if that makes any sense. And 2, please. Thank you for spamming the links. It helps out. It's always expensive. Yeah. Yeah, there are some aspects of this hobby where, okay, Okay, story time. Story time. One of my friends from college, she was asking about getting like a, a fairly decent sized aquarium for her office. And they wanted something like 180 gallons or something like that. And they wanted it to be a coral reef and all this. And she was asking like, hold on, two please, 1999 super chat. I have to cut myself off. Thank you so much, two please. Have a drink this afternoon on me. I'm drinking a lot of water these days. I'll tell you that story in a bit too. When I'm watching college football, I will think of you. Thank you. So, anyway, so my friend wanted this 180 gallon tank. And she was like, how much is it going to cost? And I'm like, ballpark, I don't know, 3,000 to 5,000, maybe. And, she was like asking about ways to save money. And I was just thinking, there are ways to save money. Like you can do a 180 gallon tank for a lot less. There are corners you can cut. There are analogs on Amazon that will do pretty darn good, right? But if you've never done this hobby before, there's an infinite number of ways you can screw up. And you're already sabotaging the process by cutting corners that you don't know which ones to cut. And I mean, like, sorry, but I'm not going to babysit my friend that wants to do a tank, right? So I told her, like, look, talk to this person, see if they can hook you up with something, and see if it can work with your budget, okay? And hilariously, like what we had discussed about that 180 gallon tank turned into a 200 gallon viewable on all four sides custom acrylic, okay? And they got sticker shock when that quote came back for all the equipment and everything at like $14,000. It's like, okay, you went completely off the reservation, right? You asked about a 180. That is a standard size glass aquarium, blah, blah, blah. And you went with a custom four-sided nonsense. Okay. So not only were they not like prepared to cut the right corners, but they wouldn't know that like the slightest tweaks off of that line, off of that golden path, is treacherous to your budget. So anyway, yeah, it costs in this hobby can escalate really quickly. So it's not just your ability to save money; it's also to your ability to avoid something that's going to be like, oh, you can have that, but it's going to be 5 times the price. Gabriel, hey Than, made it to the live show for the first time in forever. Welcome back. Welcome back. Any thoughts on including red and green lights in tank lighting? Whenever we have lighting fixtures with reds and greens, they are almost always at 0. We don't use it a lot. So if it was me, I would not really put a lot of weight or emphasis on that. Courtney, I am loving all the Ghanies. Can't keep them alive though. They just slowly shrivel. Sad times. A couple things you might want to try. Okay, again, corporate sponsors, man. Polyp Lab makes a dip called Reef Primer, and I'm going to be doing like a sponsored video just about that product for them. And it's going to be coming out in a couple weeks here probably, but it helps out so many random issues, including when Ghanies are struggling, because it handles a lot of things really well. So that's obviously a perk, right? Effectiveness. But it's also super gentle compared to most other dips. So it's kind of like that doctor mentality of like, first do no harm. That's kind of like how I feel when it comes to doing these types of preventative dips. I don't want to stress out a coral that might have been okay into a decline. And so with that particular reef primer product, I don't mind giving it a shot on delicate corals like kagani's and stuff like that. If anything looks suspicious, it's going into reef primer for about 30 minutes. And across the board, it has helped. So that's something that you might want to try. Jesse, great to see you live again. Love your collaborations lately. Thank you. Yeah, for a little stretch there, I had a bunch of people coming over here. I went over to a couple other places. So I saw the guys at Reef Builders. They came over. Patrick from Reef Wholesale came with March from Fragbox. They shot a video a little while back. I did a whole series of videos with Bulk Reef Supply. That was a lot of fun. I hope to be getting out to them again for filming. Nothing is scheduled yet, but I was talking to Ryan about that, and so I'll be getting out to I always get them confused. Minnesota. They're in Minnesota. I'm like, Wisconsin or Minnesota? It's Minnesota. Okay. Jesse again. What are your thoughts on Fido in an SPS system, pros and cons? We don't use it. I've never really done much with phytoplankton. I bet it's great. The only problem is it might not be great for us because we've got like a handful of vermitid snails in our systems, okay? Practically, you can't see them if you just like walk by our tanks, okay? That's how few they are. You have to like really study every little nook and cranny before you even find one, right? But if we broadcast feed Fido, if we broadcast feed any kind of powdered food, if we put in too much amino, whatever, all of a sudden there's going to be 1,000 of them. They do so much better when you go crazy with like the broadcast all things to all corals types of feeds. So we need to pump the brakes on Fido. The folks that do Fido successfully, God bless you. Go for it. I bet the corals just love that stuff. But for us, it might not be working out. Now, having said that, that might not be a thing that we will struggle with forever because like I said before earlier in the stream, we are practically not protein skimming these tanks. Like protein skimming is a function of flow rate through your protein skimmer. And it's also about bubble size and dwell time. There's all these different formulas. Long story short, you want to turn your entire water volume through your protein skimmer once every hour. And once it is inside your protein skimmer, in that reaction column, you want that water to stay in there for an average of 1 to 2 minutes. 2 minutes being the gold standard, okay? And when Raj was over, he was just like looking over my tanks, and he just looked at my protein skimmer, and and he would never say anything bad. And I'm poking him, it's like, give me commentary. He's like, okay, so this protein skimmer is not doing anything because it is getting a trickle of input water. Your whole system is 2,500 gallons. You might be sending 900 into this protein skimmer. It needs to be closer to 2,500 gallons per hour. Okay, so it's not receiving enough water. Then just the physical size of the protein skimmer, it might be good enough for that flow rate. But if I just stuck an Ecotech Vectra L2 on it, cranked it to like 100%, and sent 2,500 gallons per hour through it, it's just going to like blow the bubbles out of there in like 2 seconds, right? So no, you won't reach the dwell time that you needed in your reaction column. So the only way to really do that is to physically increase the size of the skimmer. You need a bigger skimmer, long story short. So once we do get that bigger skimmer, suddenly maybe something like that could filter out all the uneaten phytoplankton aggressively enough that it doesn't turbocharge filter feeding organisms that I don't want to go nuts in my system. So, who knows? One thing that's already helped has been filter socks. We've been filter socking now for a couple of months. It is a noticeable decrease in a lot of like things like detritus. So that's been nice. Coral gardens. My SPS have wonderful polyp extension. That said, they have a single white tentacle that extends from the polyp during the day. Is this stress or is it hungry? This is happening in several SPS. That is normal. That is called a terminal polyp, and they usually have that one little single white extended tentacle. Normal. Very good though. Alex, is a refugium better at nutrient control than a skimmer? Hard to say. Like, is it going to be better than an Abyss powered MRC? Probably not. Is it 600 gallons? Like, there's like degrees to all this, right? Like, how good is your refugium versus how good is your protein skimmer? The thing about a refugium that doesn't ever quite work out for me is if you have like pests, your efforts at biological control might go poorly because you're going to have this refugium where they will pretty much always persist. Having said that, I did talk to somebody before that loves refugiums, and he basically said, because he had like a 600-gallon tank or something, you're gonna get pests. You're gonna get every pest, in fact. Now, you can either have those pests in your refugium, or you could have those pests in your main aquarium. You just have to pick and choose. Given the choice, I want them all living in my refugium. And I'm like, that is an interesting take. Now, as a coral farm, we always have to like put in the consistent effort to try to eliminate pests, right? We try to eliminate them on intake. We try to eliminate them prophylactically while we have corals here for long-term grow-outs and everything and farming. But yeah, there is this thought that if you have a tank that is better for the pests, they will go to that one tank and they leave the rest of the system alone. I mean, it's a take. I don't know how valid it is. I don't know how true it is, but it was a perspective. We do not use refugiums. Gabriel says, okay, hold on. I lost my spot. Okay. Do live shows have any super high-end crazy pieces mixed in still? Sometimes. I forget which ones we might have put in this show. They all blend together for me. You know, I've been doing this for like how many years? Like 6 years? 6, 7 years. So they all kind of blend in a bit. But a lot more frag-sized pieces, but there are some medium-sized colonies, I would say. My tank has so many vermin, it sounds like they're crawling up the glass sometimes. I heard that they have like an early stage that is like an actual snail that crawls around and then they stop and start growing. Too pleased with the $1.99. Support Tidal Gardens with a super chat. Thank you so much. Yeah, you know, it's like certain live streams, there's like a culture of giving with super chat, and we tend to be on the lower end of that, and understandably because we're selling. So any super chat is like, for this stream, is like crazy generous. So thank you so much, too, please. I appreciate it. Let's see. Phyto is food for pods. Yes, it is. Corals likely consume way more phyto than you might think, especially things like soft corals. I've told this story before, but I'll just tell it again. One time I accidentally put in a year's supply of phyto into my tank. There was like a dosing pump issue where basically the dosing pump kind of like messed up and then something sucked in the entire bottle. So the entire tank was like green, like solid green. But a lot of corals there were having the time of their life that night. Then I had to like, run the UV sterilizer, clear up all the water, and then all those corals run happy again. But yeah, there's definitely some corals that are all about phyto. Raj is always super critical of me. He must be mesmerized by your bow ties. The thing is, Raj tries really, really, really hard to never be a pushy salesperson, and especially not on my scale. And by my scale, I mean small fish. Because the sorts of systems that he works on, if he never sells a piece of equipment to a hobbyist, he will be just fine because he does like big, crazy public aquarium engineering projects. Like my order, it's a non thing. It's like some little footnote on some invoice. It doesn't matter, right? The only thing that he's worried about is that he just wants to make sure that I like it, because I'm a little extra. So he's just like, knowing you, I don't know anything that's gonna make you happy, but he's gonna give it a shot. He's gonna give it a shot. I'm getting a Biz powered MRC Pro 4 skimmers. They're 60 inches tall. We'll see. Every time I start, so this is Barry Goss Sr. Every time I start feeding anything, something always goes south. So if it cannot survive off light and what's in the water column, it's not going to do well. You know what? Fair. Sometimes, like especially with feeding, sometimes there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. You can definitely overfeed corals, especially if it's something like a powdered food that's like crazy concentrated, crazy rich. All right, now you're speaking my language. Sky and C4K, fastest way to clean filter socks without destroying them with a jet wash. I am in my like last couple months here of using filter socks. I've got the technique. I don't clean them quickly, but what I do, I turn them inside out. I rinse them really, really well. So I try to like turn them inside out and rinse out like the big chunky pieces. Okay. Then I try as best as possible to like squeeze out as much material as possible, and I wouldn't say it's a jet wash like a hose or anything like that, but it's like the spray setting on your regular kitchen faucet. That type of intensity will do, right? But the squeezing is like the kind of the key to it. Just kind of like work the water through it to make sure that it does its thing. Then I soak it for about 24 hours in like a bleach and water solution. Don't quote me on how much the concentration is. You probably don't need a lot of bleach. After that, I take this inside out filter socks and I put them all into the washing machine. And I don't pour like all that bleach into the washing machine or anything like that. Just take the filter socks and run it through 2 rinse cycles. So it's a whole cycle. Do the entire program once with it inside out, and then I right side out it and run it again, and that pretty much eliminates all of like the chlorine issue, chlorine bleach. And then I let it sit out for like a couple of days just to air out. But when I do that, those filter socks look brand new. And it takes, for me to do like 6 filter socks, it'll take me like a half hour of spraying it out in the sink. But that's the way that I do it. Okay. Not sure if this is something you can answer, but do you happen to know any corals besides gorgonians that are seahorse safe? Not corals off the top of my head. Because there's a lot of things that can sting seahorses. Now, I have to say, for full clarity, I have never in my whole life owned seahorses. So anything that I tell you is something I just heard. Having said all that, there's a lot of like good seahorse people out there, and you should definitely hit them up if that's something that you're looking to do. Yeah, it sounds scary to use bleach, but as long as you rinse them and make sure there's no fabric softener in your machine, it's safe. Yes, and typically 2 rinse cycles, they're going to be pretty clean. And again, that second, giving it that extra day to air out really helps too. If you're extra concerned, I suppose you could soak things again in RO, but 2, please, will we ever get a barbecue again? Very unlikely, but not impossible. Very unlikely. The unlikely aspect of it is just the open to the general public part of it. However, it might not. I don't know. There might be private parties, like by invite. We'll see. I don't know. Most likely no. Long story short, there most likely no. John Williams, I got a game changer for you. If you use filter socks as a pressure washer, not a super powerful one, just a standard home, okay. You're welcome. I bet that's phenomenal because it'll just like force everything through. But I think that what people ran into issues with pressure washers is that if they're too strong, it'll just like tear them apart. The pressure washer that I have could probably cut through your house. Like, it is the biggest pressure washer. Like, professional pressure washing companies dream of the one that I have, sort of thing. So unfortunately for me, sink sprayer it is. You've been considering adding a refugium though. Have I? So not really. Okay, so what I've been considering adding is kind of like a circulation chamber that I can just grow decorative macroalgae in, because like kind of like the best way to grow macroalgae is to have like something tied to your system that's roughly can make like a circular whirlpool. Excuse me. Of all the different tanks and tubs that we have here, the 300-gallon Rubbermaid stock tank is mostly circular. They're cheap. We have them. We're eventually going to decommission them because we want to use, glass aquariums for everything. But to grow algae in something like that, just to like let it spin slowly, like that seems perfect. Now, we want to do that so we can sell macroalgae. Having said that, selling clean macroalgae is kind of a pain in the butt because you can't really have herbivores, and problematic algae also like to grow in the same conditions that nice macroalgae grow in, and they will grow right on top of the macroalgae. So I was asking Tiga Boy on Instagram. I had met him at one of these shows. I forget exactly which one. Might have been a rap, might have been Aquashell, I don't remember. Anyway, I met him and I was asking like, okay, so you keep decorative macroalgae aquariums. How do you go about making sure that you don't get like problematic, like, I'm just going to say problematic algae, but specifically stuff like red turf algae, something that just spiders and grows all over your macros. And he's like, yeah, that's a problem. And the only real way to solve it is to aggressively prune it out and throw it away. So whenever it grows on your really nice red dragon's tongue or whatever the heck, you have to prune that red dragon's tongue all the way down to like 6% of its original size and let it grow back up. And anytime you see some more of that turf algae, you have to pick that out, throw it away too. So it is a very high maintenance garden. And I'm not about that. And I am definitely not about hearing customers complain about something growing on their macroalgae. So yes, I was thinking about doing the refugium thing specifically to grow those algae, and I don't even know how interested I am in doing that. B, Confidential. I started planning a TG party, but we couldn't find a good weekend for this year. Yeah, there's that too. Hopefully it'll happen at some point. Yes, maybe. We'll see. Yes for you guys. Maybe for me. Maybe it'd be a good thing. Marcus. Hey, I've got a 20-gallon, running for about 2 years, got corals thriving, but kind of feel like getting fish. So any recommendation on fish? A lot of personal preference. I am ultra conservative when it comes to fish sizing. So don't get anything that like could remotely outgrow that thing. I would stick to like the nanoest of nano fish. We're talking like gobies and stuff. But again, a lot of personal preference. John Williams, question. Have you ever seen an emperor angel with corals? I really like those fish. Thanks. Yes. So I had kept one with corals. They eat the corals. Long story short there. An emperor... I was going to say either emperor or imperator angel. It's a pomacanthus. And those are well-known coral eaters. Now, you might get away with putting in corals that are simply really unappetizing for it. So they might not like discosoma mushrooms. They might not like SPS. But if you're talking about LPS, anything kind of like fleshy, they're going to go ahead and eat that. Brandon, yo, getting back into the hobby, tank cycling at the moment. Nice. Yeah, take your time with that. Don't jump into anything. Patience will pay off huge dividends. Or you can buy a bunch of corals. That too. Okay. Emperor Angel requires a minimum 120. Yeah, I kept it in a 120. They get quite big. I wouldn't do a 120. I'd get something quite a bit bigger. Let's see. I'm going to plan a party at TG. Just don't tell Fan. Great. Thanks. There are some trace elements that refugiums can chew through. You have to account for that. That is a good point. So algae, they really like to go through iron and I think molybdenum or something like that. There are an iodine. There's definitely some things that that macroalgae will consume. So if you have like a lot of success with macroalgae, it's like, wow, this stuff is growing like crazy. It might be time to take a look at those values because the alternative is those values tank, and anytime you get like zeroed out trace elements, it could be an issue. I'm losing my voice already. I'm not used to talking. Like when it comes to this job, I just kind of sit and not speak. It's kind of wonderful. So every month or so, we do one of these shows, and I'm like, I am so out of practice of actually talking. So real quick for fun, there are, I don't know, 100 and some odd folks on. Let me know where you guys are from. Put in your area codes into chat for me. And let's see who's representing their digits. I'm 330, by the way. Okay, what is the number counting on the top left. That's the Kelvin rating. So that's the color temperature. We do a special effect where we're subtly changing the light on the coral, going from a warmer color that's more daylight colored to a more actinic color. So that kind of just gives you a rough idea of like the various types of lighting that people can keep their stuff under, because a lot of beginners run into this issue where like they'll buy a coral online, Tidal Gardens, let's say, and we get this like once every quarter, like once every like 3-4 months, and it's like, I got this coral, it doesn't look like the picture. So we include a picture that's kind of like 10K. We include a picture that's more or less actinic. And by the way, we used to do that as a special effect. Now we physically change the lighting on that. And we edit the two to be a little bit further apart. Before they were a little bit too close. Now we're giving that separation. But even now, we are this type of animation where we are going from like a warm color, like the yellowish daylight, to a blue color. We're even including those in every single coral item, because a lot of beginners, they don't know what stuff looks like, and they don't know that certain corals, to really bring out crazy colors, only look good like that under a very, very, very specific spectrum. The minute you give it like a little like teaspoon of daylight, all the colors are gone. So that is what that function serves. All right. All right. They're throwing in zip codes, y'all. I said area codes. Got the 570 in Central PA. Got unless those are like country codes and I'm just being ignorant. Scott 21. Let's see. Jesse, Springfield, Missouri. Okay, that's definitely a zip code. Germany. Got Marcus in Sweden. I've never been. I would like to visit. That's gonna be more challenging now. I've got some cats with special needs. So they have me kind of like strapped down. Unless I can find a very, very good caretaker for them, I can't take long vacations. Illinois, Louisiana. Got the 30034 for San Noches. You're from overseas, right? Mark Thor, Essex, UK. I've been there. Latvia. We have like a big international crowd. That's really cool. 49ers Reefer, Bay Area, California. Name checks out. Tucson with a 33. Oh, because I haven't changed my number in 10 years. That's funny. I've got a friend. She lives in Tucson, Arizona also, and she's got the 33. Does she? Here, hold on. I'm gonna look up my friend real quick. What is your number? No, she has a 440 area code. Never mind. That's like I don't know, Brunswick or something. Let's see. I just lost my spot. Charlotte, North Carolina. Don't know the number. Brandy. 412 Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh and Cleveland are playing an American hand egg game tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. No, they're not playing tomorrow. It's Monday night. They're playing on Monday night. Never mind. Let's see. Got John Williams, a 912, Time Chaser 765, Scott 21 208, Sam L 347, Anthony 865. Two Pleas with 540, Albuquerque, Dave Simmons, Joseph Mendoza 408. 912 is the area I grew up in. Do you really not know your Charlotte area code? That is bizarre. 314 St. Louis, 705 north of Toronto. Nice, nice. 203 Danbury, 919 Raleigh in the house. Nice. Darlington, South Carolina, Redneck Reefer, 532. You know what, just for fun, I'm gonna say name checks out. Nobody that's not a redneck would self-identify as a redneck from South Carolina. Can you make a video of different types of gorgonians? I know that there's many types. I could. I don't have a ton of them. I don't have a ton. And I think I made a video of gorgonians, but it's probably every bit of 10 years old now. Leroy Klein, 281. Andrew, 402. Omaha, Nebraska. My friend got married in Omaha, Nebraska. He was in medical school there. Yeah. Dave Simmons, 505. Cincy, 513. Waterhouse Jason. Certain Reefs, 619. San Diego. Nice. Jordan M's in Milwaukee, 414. Matt said he didn't know Charlotte at first, but he said it's 704. Nice. Learn something new every day, right? 316 Kansas. Nick, what's up? And we got West CB from Western Australia. Very nice. Yeah, Australia is one of those places I would definitely like to visit. It's going to be a long time before I get to visit. Sinoche Stan, love that bow tie. Speaking of Australia, this was handmade in Sydney. Okay, by the way, this one, long story short, a lot of things can happen in shipment. Hold on. I need to change battery on my camera here. It is blinking angrily at me. One sec. Okay. That was fun. Yeah, I have like a battery that I put in there that's like smaller, and I use it just like set up, and then I switch to like a bigger battery, and that like takes me, through the entire live show. Yeah, I forgot to do that. So then I was like looking up at my camera, I'm like, that's a different light that I've never seen before. Yeah, that's why. Creighton University is a great medical school in Omaha. Yep, that is where he went. Let's see. Amber Coralhead Reefers in Germany, 72119. Live, Love, Fish, Rhode Island, 401. There we go. Let's see. Frank Wang. I want to buy some, but worrying they die during transportation since Vegas is still kind of hot outside. Yeah, that is a very legit concern. We work with people with weather. We use cold packs, but guys, it is just physics. If it's like 120 degrees, we're not going to send it to you. Especially since that it's chilly here now. Like in the morning, it's 40 degrees sometimes. So now we don't want to popsicle the coral here in Ohio to get to your scorching hot desert. And it's like when the delta is like nearly 100 degrees difference, it's going to be a bad time. Vancouver in the house, West Coast reefing. So Vancouver is a place I would love to visit. It looks so pretty out there. Brandon, how far are you from Columbus? I am about 2 hours, give or take, from Columbus. Woody's Gamertag. BRS made a video suggesting that cutting a colony into 5 frags will increase its growth rate by 500%. Is that in line with your experience? Doesn't that kind of depend on what it is? I'm guessing if you cut certain corals into 5, it's going to just die. Like there's we tend to be conservative when it comes to like a big area cut. So for example, like it's very tempting to take a coral and be like, I got 10 pieces now, bam, and you have like 10 instant frags you can just like, sit there and just like watch grow. But for like a big giant coral, let's say like a big chalice, we're in no hurry. It's like the rule is you get one cut. So, bang, right down the middle. You got two. You let it heal. Then, bang. Now you got four. Let it heal. For us is more important than bang, 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 bang. Got 10 pieces, and let's see them all grow fast. There's a really good chance that the wound itself is too aggressive. So we tend to go like slower and more methodical with these cuts. So yeah, like I said, we're not in any hurry. We'll do that one cut, let it heal, do another cut, let it heal, do another cut, let it heal. Now they're too small to realistically cut. We let them grow back out. And also like, honest truth when it comes to coral farms. There are a few things that tend to grow more slowly. That's just kind of like the nature of the beast. Like, I wish I could grow glitter bombs and amaze balls faster. Doesn't always work out. But across the board, growth rate is not a problem. Like, you don't always want stuff to go just bonkers hyper fast, because there's like a lot of coral. Like, we're looking like a lot of these Cyphastria right now. They're growing just fine. I don't want to grow them 500% faster. Like, we couldn't sell them. Like, they would overgrow everything so fast. Let's see. Two, please. I have a friend that watches you, Than, and his son, who's like 6 now, wears bow ties because of you. Oh, that's awesome. You know, I never thought that I would like bow ties as much as I do, but they are really cool. Like, I got it specifically for like a black tie event. This was like years ago. This was for, it was a black tie event at Shed Aquarium, actually. Love Shed Aquarium. I got invited to like their annual fundraising gala, and that was right when I was like starting my like journey into like classic men's fashion and style. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, I'm down to like do the whole tuxedo dinner jacket thing, but you need a bow tie. And that's when I learned to tie a bow tie. It was a miserable experience. I've gotten way better since. But yeah, and just for fun, I just started collecting them because I had heard of this place in Australia. And it's like, I heard that those who know that the best bow ties are made in Australia, in Sydney, by this guy Nicholas, and his store is called Le Nod Papillon, which is like French for, I guess the direct French translation is like butterfly knot, which means bow tie. And yeah, his bow ties are really darn good. I think I have 30 of them now. It's been a bit of a collecting process. So there's a very seldom chance that you've ever seen me wear the same bow tie twice. Anyway, they're fun. They're fun. Actually, just like the whole men's, like classic men's style thing is legitimately my hobby now. Like, I have a great deal of fun with it. John Williams, what would be a good beginner leather that doesn't get too big and colorful for my clownfish? Okay, so here's the thing. If you're successful doing this, every coral is going to get big. That's how it works. So all the frags we sell start small, but they could be 2 feet in diameter if they do well. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you there. Having said that, I think that people overestimate how fast leathers grow. Like, so our leathers, we've got giant ones. I bet we could fill a 180 gallon tank stuffed full of pizza sized, like showpiece caliber leather corals. No problem. But people think that, oh, they're going to go crazy and take over my tank. They're not going to do that. You're not going to have that problem because they grow a lot more slowly than people think. It's just one of those things that we don't frag that aggressively. So they just kind of just be big. And then at that point, it's like, we can't really do much with them because we're going to put like 80 frags of leather coral from this one leather, and we have a dozen of them that are that big. So we just let them be. John Graywit, 91320. Is that in LA? Marcus, what's your best, in your opinion, asking chat? Having a 40-gallon aquarium and 20 or 10-gallon sump, or a 60-gallon display? No. You have to have a sump. The sump is more important than the display tank. Yeah, there's no question. No, there's no question. Like, so I'm an infrastructure guy to begin with. Like, I would rather have like a 60-gallon sump and a 10-gallon aquarium. Like, it is, you work in your sump. Like, people think that, oh, my show tank is where all the heavy lifting happens. That's where all your maintenance happens. All your maintenance happens in the sump. You clean your glass. Like, that's nothing. And so you're not even in your tank. You're just using a magnet from the outside 90% of the time. The real deal business is all about the sump. You want that sump large and ergonomic for you. 60-gallon sump, 10-gallon tank. Let's see. Can you show some pics of elegance corals? What would be a beautiful piece, and how much do they cost? I love elegances. I don't know if there is one on this live show. I think we picked some up recently. Whenever we bring corals in, it takes 7 days for them to get through our initial staging, and that's not even the quarantine. That's just initial like cleanup and staging. So once they're done with that, then we put them on the website. So I don't know if there's anything currently in the elegance category, but that is where you will find them, because I don't think that there are any on this show. Let's see. I think it's elegance corals that have some that are 2 feet across. We have some big ones. Yeah. Like, elegance corals can get enormous and they're super cool. They also like to eat snails, so be careful. Sir Hi, 380 in the Ukraine. Cool. Reef Canvas by Gabriel. Bow ties are cool. Not sure if anyone watches Doctor Who. I watched it in the 80s. And I've only watched a tiny bit of the newer one. And I say newer because it's probably every bit of 10, 20 years old, isn't it? Yeah, 30 bow ties B. I lack the functions to wear these things out to. That's my problem. My problem isn't having 30 bow ties. My problem is living in rural Ohio and having no place to go with a bow tie. So this is funny. On my, I don't know if I posted this on anything Tidal Garden social related, but on my personal Facebook. Okay. There was I just got this random email, and it was like a social meet and greet for business professionals in Northeast Ohio, and they were having their meeting at my favorite steakhouse that is 5 minutes from my house. And so it's a free meal. I don't get a lot from business networking generally, right? If it's at a trade show where I'm meeting the different brands, I'm meeting different influencers and stuff like that, and I can talk shop with other stores, cool. That's a great time. But generally talking to guys, they're I'm an accountant. Would you like some accounting services? I'm a lawyer. Would you like some? No, I just want to get a free meal at my favorite steakhouse. Anyway, I signed up for this thing under that premise. Maybe I'll talk to somebody. I probably won't, but I get to dress up, and I'm gonna go to my favorite steakhouse. I get there, ghost town, because somewhere along the line, they changed the venue. I didn't get a notification. Like the e-ticket just changed, and so it was like now 30 minutes away, and I'm already at my favorite steakhouse. I'm like, whatever. It turns out it's happy hour, and there's happy hour meals. So I got some. What did I have? It was like, yeah, they had like they had beef Wellington bites, but I had to pay for it, which defeated the purpose of me going out to that thing. Anyway, but that's the sort of thing. So I hunger for anything like that where I get to go out and dress up. Oh, yeah. So earlier I got a super chat from Two Please, and he's like, like, get yourself a drink after this. And I was like, I'm drinking water now. Reason being, your boy is too fat, and I was drinking too many sugary drinks, and I had gone to my doctor for the first time in like a few years, and they were not impressed. Let's just say they were not impressed. I was the heaviest I've ever been, and I gotta love my doctor for this, but he's just like, listen, you need to decide for yourself if you want to live or not. He's like, okay, whatever you got going on in your lifestyle, yeah, don't just stop doing all that. Like none of that stuff is working. And so the other doctor, she was like a young like doctor in residency, and I was explaining to her that, yeah, because of like COVID, I developed the bad habit of Uber Eatsing every meal or DoorDashing every meal. And I don't live in Manhattan. I don't have like good food choices. I have like Applebee's or Mexican Applebee's or German Applebee's or Chinese Applebee's. It's like it is all the same trash tier food, okay? And like the health section is literally like Papa John's Pizza is in the health section. There's no hope. I tried to do like the home delivery of groceries. I ended up just eating cereal and drinking Coke. I tried getting like farmers market delivery stuff. That was actually awesome, but that involved too much cooking for me. And I'm just being realistic about my lifestyle choices. I'm a single guy. Cooking at home does not make a lot of sense. That is a very labor intensive activity. So, but anyway, this young lady, doctor, she was like, I got you. Okay, I got you. Because, she's a resident. She's probably putting in like 50 billion hours. It is not convenient to cook. So she's like, you got to get hooked up with Factor. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. She's like, it's a meal plan. It's healthy and delicious. Give it a try. And at first I was like, how much is it? It doesn't matter. DoorDash is super expensive, right? So it turns out that these microwave meals, it's literally like 2 minutes in the microwave, right? I can handle that. I eat it. I throw away the thing. We're done. Those meals average $11. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but it is saving me cooking time. It is saving me cleanup time. It is delivered weekly, and it is fresh and happens to be delicious. So I've lost like 9 pounds in a week or something. And so the sticking to the meal plan has been like the easiest thing. I just need to exercise more. But yeah, long story coming from the fact that I now drink pretty much only water. But guys, real talk, I was fat. And I know I was fat because I wear custom clothing. And when your custom clothing is telling you you're fat, you need to get it taken out. And that is never a comfortable conversation to have with your tailor, because it's like, hey, it ain't working out. I need an extra inch on all this stuff. Okay, Brandon, are you open for the public to visit the facility? We are open by appointment, so that is possible. We don't have the most flexible schedule in the whole wide world, partially because the weekends have gotten a lot more busy. So your best bet would be during the day before 4 p.m. Anthony, yeah, let's actually talk about like reef aquarium stuff, right? I've got a 29 gallon with 8 softies. It's going to be a mixed tank. Got a 100 watt. Don't know what that is. It's 5% white, 80% blue. No, it's probably fine. Probably fine. All corals are doing great except the clove at 9 hours full strength. 9 hours is a long photo period at full strength. You could probably go a little bit less with that. Thought you didn't keep whales at Tidal Gardens. I don't know what reference that is, but yeah, I don't know. B the Fountain, Taco Bell. Yeah, so when B came over, okay, we were talking about, hold on, my screensaver just came on. We were talking about, so very kind of her. She came to town. This is like during my birthday weekend, and we went to see like a stage show up in Cleveland. It was Moulin Rouge, like very, very cool. And the idea was like, we would have like, like a nice dinner. You know what we did? We DoorDashed Taco Bell. Like I legit spent, I think, $40 on soft taco supremes. It's like the dumbest thing ever. Strangely though, it hit the spot for the time. Looking back on it, that was like really disgusting. I shouldn't have done that, but that was not the first time that I've DoorDashed Taco Bell. I wonder how your staff would react to being tasked with food prep. They might disagree with me, but they make way too much money for that. Like, I would be better off with them to just like do your coral related stuff and don't let anybody distract you. Just do the coral stuff, please. Right? All these other little knick-knack things, don't even worry about that. It's like your pay bracket does. So this is like a thing in like law firms, like I guess like lawyers. I guess from what I've heard from some of my lawyer friends, like they're not allowed to go make copies. It's like no. The paralegal will make copies. You need to bill out your time at $200 an hour for your clients. Okay? Don't be making copies. It's that sort of thing. I'm like, guys, take care of the tanks, ship the orders, deal with customers, all that fun stuff. Do not be making my microwave meals for me. Absolutely not. I love this story. The key to a fitness diet is finding the food substitutes that you can live with. Maybe that almond cream in your coffee, stevia, diet soda, something you can stick to. It is super important. And that is the one. Okay, hold on. Factor sponsors a lot of YouTube creators. A lot of them. I should take their money because I would be the biggest spokesperson for them. Like, their stuff is so well thought out in my humble opinion, because they will make cauliflower into like 9 different things. It'll be cauliflower rice. It'll be cauliflower grits. It'll be cauliflower mashed potatoes. They'll make all these different analogs out of cauliflower to be a substitute for something that would have like monster carbs, like potato or rice, or whatever it was supposed to replace was going to be like a very, very carb heavy thing. So they'll do that with a whole bunch of different types of vegetables. So largely, you're eating like a decent protein source, whatever it may be, mostly chicken, and a lot of vegetables, and they don't go crazy with like the super unhealthy sorts of fats. So I am not on a ketogenic diet, but the meals, when you really do the math, are absolutely low carb. And it took me like a week of eating this, and suddenly I'm like, I have legitimately double the energy that I did before, to the point where I was like suspicious that like, are they lacing this food with Adderall? Because no joke, it's like 2 minutes in the microwave and then it's crack a clock. Because all of a sudden I'm like hyper productive and alert. I don't always need to take like an afternoon nap like I used to do. And I was like, this is like concerningly good. And is it just because I'm eating vegetables and avoiding a high carb diet? Or is this like meth? Am I a meth head now? So anyway, meal plan has worked out. If you have like a family, it's probably not going to work out because it's like every single individual serving is like $11. But for the convenience factor, it's working out for me. My wife is a great cook but makes the bad yummy stuff. I'm making my own ice cream here. I needed to tone that down. Because I've got like I've got problematically good ice cream. Oh, the whale thing was an impolite joke about weight gain. Facts. Yeah. I was very blimpy. Kevin C. Long story short, BioCube is a BioCube stock light adequate? No, no. Get a better light. You'll see a lot of improvement. Light and flow are crazy important things. Don't skip on those. Family of four, Taco Bell, 140. Jeez. Jeez. Remember when fast food used to be cheap food? No, it's just fast now. And it's not. People like fast food, I get that. I've definitely DoorDashed me some Taco Bell. It's not good, y'all. It's really, really, really not. When you become a whale, it becomes difficult to wear striped shirts. Yeah, because it like bends space and time. Yeah, it's like why does the pattern go in? Is that where the black hole is? Yeah. Kevin, I have a BioCube LED, two blue actinic reef border. Corals grow great. Coral lines exploded. Yeah, what it stock lights like that. I think it's like fine for like certain things that are like super dim loving, but no, if given the opportunity to get like a real honest to god light, save up. It's worth it. Oh my god, the naps. I love taking like an afternoon nap like at about 4 o'clock. Not no mo. I eat at 4, which means I'm like for the rest of the evening. I'm telling you, there's something in these meals. You won't be sleepy if the food has less tryptophan. Yeah, I think that I only eat like a turkey based thing maybe once a week. It's not a lot. Yeah, fast food isn't even fast anymore. Okay, this is like pre-pandemic that I went to Steak and Shake. Like, they have a drive-through, okay? It's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes. And it's not like, oh, the line is long. No. There's a person in front of me. They go through, I place my order, and it's like they made that burger from the scratchest scratch. And it's like your burger will be ready when it's ready. It's like, why do you have a drive-through? Like, well, what are we doing here, right? No, that's a problem. Problem for sure. First, I mean, granted, it is all first world problems, but I'm just glad that I found a solution because, I mean, it's not. I wasn't making excuses at the doctor's office, but at the same time, my doctor wasn't exactly hearing it either. He was just like, "You need to do whatever it takes, play whatever mind games you need, but you need to figure this out. Like, you need to make this happen, and hopefully, it does work out for you." Because, like, literally, whatever it is you're doing, it ain't doing it. Exercise will be the next thing. I'm thinking about getting a gym membership. Because there's a gym about 5 minutes away. I just have to physically get there and work out. The cost isn't too bad. It's like $60 a month. But it's got a pool. It's pretty nice. Okay. Anyway, boons. Do you find newcomers buying kit setups more successful than nerding out and creating their own? I'm guessing 20-gallon. The nice thing about like the kit setups is that the things will fit together nicely. Now, if you wanted to do like upgrades to it, that's where things may or may not fit together well. Okay? So if you're totally new to the hobby, maybe having like a curated thing like that will be pretty good. So, for example, like my friend March up in Canada, he started to sell his own line of all-in-ones. It's called Reef Casa, and it's a nicely thought out little kit. And I think like if you've never done it before, that's like a perfectly good place to start. Perfectly good place to start. And then like as you get accustomed to it, then you start to see other people's things, and you as a hobbyist want to do things differently. Now's the time that you can like get more and more experimental. And depending on that kit, it may or may not be easy to modify. Like if it's got like a custom lid or something, that's gonna be more difficult, obviously, to change the lighting and stuff like that. But it'll definitely look nicer out of the box than something that you're gonna do on your own piecemeal. And like money savings wise, I always get like some kind of blowback from this, but your aquarium, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really impact the cost of this hobby as much as you might think. Mugala, teach something about corals. I'm not interested in fast food topics. Yeah. You could ask questions. I hear Pelotons are good. It's kind of a cult. That B is in. Yeah, Fragbox. Yes. I got like a small one from like Lifeguard, and I did it specifically for photography. And yeah, that was kind of nice. Like, would I keep anything in it? No, not really. Because at that point it's a little bit too small, because it was only like about 1.7 gallons. But yeah, I don't know. At the 20-gallon point, it's not too bad. How do you cycle between Kelvin in your videos? It is a special effect. What's the trick with Gonioporas? No matter where I move it in the tank, I feel like it's never fully extended. Polyps are open, but not what I see in others. So it's not going to open if there is something bothering it, okay? So whether that be some sort of pest, and sometimes these things are like microscopic. It could be, it could be like microscopic ciliates. There are actually flatworms that are Goniopora specific, And if you have like a pink Goniopora, there's going to be like pink nudibranchs, that sort of thing. It could be too much flow. Goniopora do pretty well in low flow. Hopefully there isn't like a fish or invert that's messing with it. Long story short, something is bothering it. It's unlikely that it is a nutrient issue, but pay attention to your water chemistry and see what that's like. Nathan, how do you feel about having multiple 200-gallon displays feeding to a single sump? That's basically what we have at our coral farm downstairs. We have, so let's say one system has 4 300-gallon tanks. It's got a 250-gallon tank and a 600-gallon tank going into a single 500-gallon sump. So there are some positives and negatives to that. One big positive is all of your big infrastructure is a one-time thing, right? You have one protein skimmer. You have one UV sterilizer. You've got presumably one return pump. There's a good argument to have 2 return pumps. However, you've doubled your cost for your return. And it's not just the pump. It is also your plumbing. And the plumbing, believe it or not, is going to be much more expensive than your pump. Like, even though my return pump is like $3,000, there might be $10,000 in plumbing. Like, it's that bad. So, long story short, you're consolidating a lot of your infrastructure. One calcium reactor, one kalkwasser doser, that sort of thing. The problem is, if you have a problem in one tank, you have a problem in all your tanks. So getting rid of chronic issues is a much bigger challenge. Anytime that you have like a pest explosion, you kind of have to manage it on the fly. You're likely always going to have Aiptasia. You can control it really well with like Aiptasia predators and practically wipe it out. 6 months down the road, an Aiptasia will pop up and it starts over again. That type of stuff. In segmented aquariums, you might have these same sort of issues pop up, but the transmission of those issues becomes less. And if you just think about it, like, well, let's say that, I can isolate this single tank and then do all my treatments and get rid of the problem. Sure, but likely the problem was also in the plumbing lines going to and from that tank also. Like, unless you, again, it's like a lot of persistent chronic issues will just stick around. Can Gonis have issues with bacteria too? Yeah, and like any coral can. Let's see. Have I ever seen a macroalgae tank that pours into a reef tank? Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people do that. And you can do nutrient removal with algae. That's definitely a thing. Finally got the new whole house generator and finally setting up all my tanks again. Nice. Yeah, I remember that you were needing a whole house generator. That must have been a very bad issue. But yeah, it'll be good to get back into it. Let's see. For mixed reef with LPS, SPS, and softies, what would you shoot for with nitrate levels? Is 5 ppm or lower stunting potential growth? LPS, SPS, that's everything. It's a mixed reef, right? Like, I don't mind anything under 20 parts per million nitrate. Like, it's fine. I get more worried about 0 to 5 than I do about 10 to 20. I want a Generac so bad. That's my weak point currently. Yeah, like having fail safes and redundancy, it becomes a very good idea once you start to have like a lot of expensive aquariums. Do you happen to have an old school SPS known as Purple Monster? Um, I've been doing this like a really long time. At one time I did. I don't know if we have anything like that right now. I don't think so. Tony Lopez, you need a new plumber. No, it turns out that 4-inch Schedule 80 by the foot, when you have to go hundreds of feet, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it is just math. I paid wholesale for all of my plumbing parts. It turns out that if you want a Spears gate valve that is not the size of a thimble, it's going to be 3 figures minimum. If you wanted a gate valve from Spears that is 3 inches, what is a 3-inch Spears gate valve out of curiosity? It is $805 retail. That is how you end up spending 5 figures on plumbing. Stuff like that. It's amazing. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, in Charlotte, we seem to have frequent short bursts of power outages, like 30 to 60 minutes. We got lucky because we typically don't have a lot of issues with like power outages, but there was a time where we were waiting for our generator to get installed. And we even got lucky with getting a generator at all, where like 1 mile down the road in one direction, no power. And like 1 block over in the other direction, no power. It was just us that retained power. And this was like during COVID when, like this 2020, there was no production going on for all these different like large generators, and we needed like a 400 amp 3-phase generator. They just happened to have one in inventory. Like there were all these people. My electrician was saying that there's like a long list of people waiting to get generators installed that have like work orders with them, and they're just waiting on generators. And we were the only one that actually got their hands on a generator because it didn't have to get manufactured. It was sitting there on a lot at whatever supplier that they had. And so yeah, we jumped ahead of the line right away and was able to get ours. 80 kilowatts. Are there some good alternatives to Acropora? So this is Sam L asking. Or good beginner Acropora. I love their look, but I'm a little intimidated by their difficulty. Acropora are difficult. That's just how it's going to be. They're very testy, and they can die for seemingly no reason. They're very temperamental. You can get a lot of different small polyp stony corals that are branching. For example, you can get like bird's nest, Seriatopora. There's Possilopora. There are plating corals because a lot of colonies of Acropora tend to be plating corals. They grow these big tables, right? So you could do like Montipora. You could do, I'm trying to think of another plating SPS. There's lots of them, really. Why am I blanking on them? Blanking. You guys in chat, let me know if you can think of any non-acro plating SPS. Because I was like thinking, no, every single time like a coral pops into my head, I'm like, no, that is kind of encrusting. Well, there's like one type of like Cyphastria, it's like the party crasher that forms plates. That's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. But so like that sort of thing, Stylophora is branching. A slower growing, very high light coral is Porites. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of different options. Um, it won't be Acropora, but Acropora have like a weird fixation in this hobby. Like people do get strangely fixated on acros, and there's a lot of different analogs that could very easily replace it, but perhaps part of it is the challenge associated with it. Maybe I think that a lot of times people like to jump into that just because they've seen a tank online that they just get inspired by, and it kind of just escalates from there. They're like, that's what I want to do. That's the tank I want. And then there's like a whole subset of the hobby where it's just like they're just sticks. They don't do anything for me. And I get that logic as well. They want like the big flowy euphyllias and ganies and all that stuff. But yeah, it's like if you're looking specifically for Acropora, nothing really fully replaces it. But if you're looking for just like an SPS dominated thing to get roughly the same kind of action, it's out there. And none of that stuff is as challenging as Acropora. Pavona, yeah. I mean, that's a weird plate, because like the ones that we have like plate vertically, not horizontally. Even my Aptasia is looking sickly. That's not good. That's not a good sign. Branching Cyphastria, it's interesting. Two, please, is off to the airport. Have fun. Good luck. Alan Brown, just want to say Tidal Gardens has some fantastic corals. Thank you. Bought a Raja Rampage frag and it grew into a beautiful plate-sized showpiece. We'll buy again soon. Well, thanks, Alan. Yeah, there are some certain chalice corals like that. There's like an avatar chalice. I think that those are all. I think they're Echinopora. I think I get really confused when it comes to chalice genera, but yeah, those things grow pretty darn quickly. There's certain corals that we're still trying to hunt down. Okay, so I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, but everybody likes to talk about rare corals, right? And rarity is a justification for a high price. But there's like these artifacts to it where there's certain corals like reached a high price point and it just stuck. And I just don't know how valid certain things are as far as like pricing goes. But like when it comes to pricing for us, we just like follow the trend line. And there's certain things there's certain things that we look at, we're just like, really? And then somebody buys it and we're like, double, really? So one thing, for instance, are like the high-end rare torches. I think this trend started off in this was probably 2018-ish when the Indonesian ban went into place. That lasted 2-3 years, where you could not get Indonesian torches. So all those different varieties became highly desirable. They all got some name associated with them, like OG Dragon Soul Torch, the Master Torch, or whatever it is, right? Like the God's gift to torch corals. And so the torch prices went from about like, I don't know, $50 per head, let's say, all the way to like $700 a head, $1,000 a head. And once uh, the Indonesian market opened back up for export, a lot of that high pricing, it went down a little bit, but it didn't go down a lot. And torches to this day are pricey. I mean, I don't even know offhand how much a lot of these torches still are. I know that they're not that cheap. Okay. So one thing is, it could just be the supplier overseas is like, we're just going to have to charge you more. We know how much people are willing to pay. We're just going to charge you more. That aspect of it totally could be a thing too. But if you're tying it also to the argument of rarity, that is definitely not the case, because you can pretty much go to any wholesaler and find them available. Now, I bring this up because I was talking about corals that I'm actually looking for that are actually rare. There are some corals, and you know when something is rare. When you go to your supplier, your wholesaler, and you see this magnificent piece, and you're like, I have to have it. How much? They won't even sell it to you. Like, that's how good that is. They're like, no, no, no. We need to keep that. We need to grow that out here. And then I have to get into my sales pitch about like, listen, you need to sell this to me because you need an off-site backup for this coral, if nothing else. If nothing else, it's like, this is an insurance policy. You can make some money right off the bat, and it is an insurance policy that if anything happened down the road, you can always count on me to have this, to have your back on this. And it's, it's like, obviously no guarantees, right? But we've backed up stuff for them. They've backed up stuff for us. It's a thing. But when you have to like start to sales pitch your wholesaler to sell you something, that's how you know like some stuff is really rare. So yeah, I'm in negotiations, trying to get some cool things. And it's one of those things where like it's not even a price thing, because like they told me how much they paid, and it is almost four figures, let's say. So yeah, whatever my price is going to be, it ain't going to be cheap, but I just need to get that specific variety, and it's so cool. South African here, we get up to 12 hours of no power. Is it per day? Oh man, that's crazy. Sometimes there are like power outages that happen here. Not here, but in the United States. That could be like 4 or 5 days. That's bonkers to me how that can happen. Yeah, at that point, I would have to look very hard into like as much self generation as possible. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to think. Uh, like doing something like that in Ohio would be darn near impossible. We would need batteries, and to, because like let's say we got enough solar panels, like we just covered the entire ground with like solar panels. It's not a backup, because once the power goes out, the electric company shuts off your solar panels because they don't want line workers accidentally getting shocked. JJ, is there a difference between Space Invader Pectinia and Chalice? Yes, completely different things. They look very similar. They look very, very similar. But one is an Echinopora, I think, and the other one, or an Echinophilia maybe? Echinophilia. And the other one is a Pectinia. So their growth patterns are going to change very substantially. But their color scheme, identical. Been through 10 days of no power because of a hurricane. Ugh, rough. The thing that worries me about hurricanes is like when it gets to like flooding and stuff. Like flooding would worry the heck out of me. Luckily, we don't have to worry too much about flooding, but like in southern Ohio, it happens like towards the river. Ooh, could be gross. Okay, let me see here. Making sure my screensavers don't reactivate. Thought that chalice was a pectinia at first too. Right, because they're the eyes and the color, like the eye size is very similar, and like the color's spot on. Like if you put the two side by side, like chromatically speaking, identical. Okay, Adrian, good question. What is the difference in color between the Vino Monte and Beach Bum? All right, I don't know. We have 4 different types, possibly 5, okay? The only way to tell is when you line them all up right next to each other, they all look very distinctly different than one another, okay? The differences are going to be really subtle. Like the base coloration, is it more orange or is it more yellow? Okay? Because like the yellow is like more like Kung Pao-ish. The more orangey, it's going to be like Beach Bum / Vino. The next thing you look at is like the color of the polyp, because one of them has like a distinctly purple polyp. Another one will have like a distinctly green polyp. So I think that the green polyp one might be the Vino. Let's see. Okay, Vino Montipora. It's got that orange, kind of like that multicolored fuchsia / orange base, green polyps. Jason Fox Beach Bum Monty. The Beach Bum that we're selling. Does that have green polyps? So the one that we have looks like it's got a lot more of like the yellow in the main body of it and orange towards the rim. That's what I'm seeing. So let me see here. Like I said, you have to see them like side by side, because otherwise like your mind will play tricks on you. Vino. Those two guys are similar. There's another one called like a Hypernova, I think. Hypernova Montipora. That one is like yellowish and greenish on the body, but then it has the purple polyps. And then Kung Pao is like the most yellowish green of them all in terms of like their base. Yeah, challenging. But like I said, there's 4. Queen of Reef, what's up? What's up, Stephanie? Let's see. Uncle Charlie, can you use crushed coral as a substrate instead of having rock? Sure. You know, it's one of those things where like your mileage really might vary when it comes to like substrates. Here, we tend to go for more bare bottom stuff. Tends to be easier for us to maintain and clean. I was just at my wholesaler. They had gone from bare bottom to like a coarse rubble substrate. And they said initially it messed with their systems. Like it got all like wonky. Like a whole bunch of corals died, all kinds of stuff. But then things like dramatically improved. And so they're like completely sold on this like pebble, not pebble size, but very chunky substrate that they don't do any maintenance on. Like they don't siphon it, nothing. They just do lots of water changes and they're good with it. But for whatever reason, that really helped things out. Now, granted, their systems struggled with low nutrient, so I'm wondering if like them having a nutrient sink was helping them, because they were having such a hard time, maintaining any numbers. If it was me, my substrate would be full of junk, and I would have a hard time keeping my phosphates and nitrates down. Then again, new protein skimmer plus filter socks, that could dramatically reduce my nutrient level, making substrates more appealing. I don't know, we'll see. Hello, Aqua Garden Zen. Welcome, welcome. Gardener Steve, do you use a chiller? No, we don't. And what's your heating bill like? My heating bill is crazy low. Like, crazy low. We're heating, like, my house, the greenhouse, and this new building for less than $500 a month in the dead of winter. And the prime culprit of that, definitely my house. It's a 100-year-old farmhouse that does not have good insulation. Greenhouse in this building, they have heated floors with, what is it called? Like a tankless hot water system. And that is crazy efficient and a crazy good way to heat a building, because all that heat starts at the bottom and it just like radiates right through you. And so you always feel comfortable. And like the stratification of heat, like in my new building, which is 2 floors, it is like the difference between 1 inch off of the ground downstairs, that's the heating source, and 1 inch off the top of like the ceiling of like of the upper floor. It's the difference is like 1 degree or like less than a degree. Crazy even coverage. Granted, the cost for natural gas in Ohio is very inexpensive. The cost for electricity in Ohio is very expensive. So depending on where you live, it could be worse. Michael Beck, post more videos, Dan. Yeah, for real. That is the biggest YouTube challenge right now, is just producing content. In the distant future, I might put together a podcast studio. My worry is I'll make this podcast studio and it'll just sit there and I won't do a podcast. I'll just have a podcast studio. Like, I've got the perfect place for it and everything. This room is like acoustically dead, and me putting in a podcast studio and using some acoustic treatment, like, it would sound amazing with like very little effort, but the real effort is just hitting record sometimes. Queen of Reef, I want to ask him if he'll have me again. If I build a podcast studio, I will absolutely invite you and David back over, and we can hang out again. That was a lot of fun. William Bidwell. I placed an order last night, then placed another order during the live show. Can I pick both of them up at the same time and combine the orders into a single one? Yes, you can pick them both up at the same time. That is fine. Ellery, damn, I pay almost $500 a month for just my house. Nothing from my solar panels make it back to the grid these days. So I think I did answer the previous person's question about like no chiller, right? No chiller, but we do run like pretty heavy AC in this new building. But But yeah, it's a shocking amount of square footage. Let's say ballpark, my house is 2,000 square feet. It might be like ballpark. I don't even know how much it is. Um, the greenhouse is like 1,300 square feet. This building is 8,000 square feet. So we're talking in the not even 9,000 square feet, something like that. So you're talking like what, 14, 15,000 square feet? No. Let's say 13,000 square feet. All of that is getting heated for like less than 500. Yeah. It's never been above 500. And like a cheap heating month is like $30. It's very nice. I appreciate you showing the corals look under different spectrums. Yeah, I think it is helpful. I mean, it's not perfect, but then again, it's like, your lighting is going to be different anyways. So when is Dan going to go full polar reef and setting up a giant tank? Actually, it was Polo Reef that completely eliminated my desire for a large aquarium. It went the exact opposite direction. I think a lot of people might have been inspired to be like, I want a huge tank like that. That is my dream aquarium. Going and visiting Polo Reef, and I've been there twice, and like knowing what goes into big tanks and the issues that big tanks run into and the maintenance involved in big tanks, it makes me regret my 600-gallon tanks. I've got two 600-gallon tanks. I'm like, I don't even like these that much. It gets a lot of work. And this is something that I was talking about with Ryan at BRS, was that a lot of times people, they aspire, and I would say that like the true, really big tank starts at about 500 gallons. That goes from like a really ambitious, good-sized reef, let's say like, in the 300-gallon range, that's like a monster, right? Once you get to 500 gallons, you might gone done messed up, because it is really difficult to maintain a 500-gallon reef. Like the sort of tricks of the trade that you might have like picked up in your reefing journey up to that point, where like, yeah, I can cut a couple corners here and make it work. I can like put in a little bit extra elbow grease and I can get rid of that problem. That stuff stops working right about at 500 gallons. Like if you think you can take a toothbrush and brush your rocks off and fix an algae issues, you can't. Literally will not work. Like by the time that you're done scrubbing the rocks, the algae has grown back where you started. Like it's like stuff like that'll happen. Like your idea about pest control, that was really cute in your 20-gallon tank when it worked. It does not work in a 500-gallon tank. So you have to get into some weird solutions. Like for example, for both Polo Reef and for the Long Island Aquarium, they had issues with acro eating flatworms, which happens to every big tank that has acros, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know. Anytime you have like large scale acro stuff going on, you're going to get these flatworms. But you can't just take stuff out and dip it at that scale. You can try. They did. But what they ended up doing was getting like a freshwater hose and like hosing off their corals. And it super stresses out the coral, but it knocks off those flatworms enough that the fish can eat them. Does it solve the problem? No, they'll come back. But if you do it enough times, like just basically put it on a calendar, it'll keep the acros alive for the most part. The fish get their snack, and it never becomes like a massive problem. We tried that. We couldn't find the right balance of like fresh water to killing acros, because at some point it's like it's too much stress on the acros. But we tried it. I was like, well, this is a thing, I guess. Yeah, weird. Alan, do you have any reef tanks at home? I do not. I keep kitties. That's about it. Maxime Garnier, hello, bonjour from France. Hello. Thank you for joining us. Will you ever sell fish? No. And or more inverts. Possibly on the inverts. Fish, non-starter. I struggle with those mightily. Lol, I love the 600-gallon LPS tank now that you actually have more corals in it. Oddly, that neglected Peninsula does better than our SPS show tank. Not that the SPS show tank is doing that badly right this second, but I mean, I always just side-eye that tank. Like, I don't like this thing. I should do an update, be like, it's all right. Motig 82. I love my 30-gallon Lagoon water box, but it cuts out a lot of fish that I can have. True facts. I think the largest I want is around 100 gallons. 100 gives you a lot more flexibility. Queen of Reef. I regret my 220. Way too big. It is a lot of work. And once you start, like I said, to get that 500, it's practically a job now. It might not be a full-time, but it's more than part-time. It's more than 20. And on top of that, it's a job you can absolutely fail at. It's like, it's not guaranteed that it's going to go well. And like the scale up is so difficult and so expensive. If you scrub rocks or you're not taking away the good bacteria, you couldn't kill the good bacteria if you wanted to. No. No, you're not. What is the best schedule for lighting? I don't think there's such a thing. Okay, there's like something that's like when drummers, right? I saw this movie called I forgot, but it's about a drummer, and it's about a very, very demanding music teacher, and it's about obsession, and like this kid keeps on getting abused because like he's not on beat, right? He's not on beat. He's like either late or early or something, right? And when like real drummers kind of like were talking about that movie, they were like, was he late? It's like, technically he might have been a little late, but there's something called like the pocket, you know? And as long as you're within the pocket, this is an acceptable drumming performance. That's kind of how I view with lighting. Like, there's a lot of variations you can do with lighting, but as long as you're in pocket, you're going to be good enough, and the coral itself is going to make up that difference. And you can't have an ideal spectrum for all corals all the time unless you literally only have one coral in your tank, because all of these animals that we have would like it slightly different from one another. So I wouldn't obsess about like providing like the perfect optimal lighting. It likely doesn't exist. You're going to get it in pocket, and then your other corals are just going to have to like regress to the mean. Let's see. Brandon, what's a good range from a maintenance perspective? 100 gallon-ish? This kind of goes back to something that we had talked about earlier. Somebody had asked, would you rather have a 60-gallon tank or a smaller tank but have a sump? And total gallons, let's say it adds up to 60. And I'm like, dude, I would, if you give me 60 gallons to work with, I want a 50-gallon sump and a 10-gallon show tank, because the infrastructure stuff and making stuff easy to get to, easy to access, all that stuff is of paramount importance to me, not so much just the space for like the fish and corals and stuff. Obviously fish, like in a 10-gallon tank, talk about like fish, right? So from a maintenance perspective, I would go extremely heavy on the infrastructure side of things. Get the biggest sump that you can. And whatever like actual aquarium, the amount of work that you do in your real deal show tank, it's much less than you might think. The amount of time that you spend on your facilities, that's going to be a lot more. So I lean much more heavily towards facility side infrastructure. Rather would have a ton of mini tanks. Besides the fact that you're multiplying the amount of equipment that you need, which is a thing, but it also works too. We have what I just call a little constellation of tanks brewing, because we have some large interconnected systems, but some of our best success is in roughly what looks like a 60, 70 gallon tank with a sump, and they're just like cubes, and I'm like, they're not attached to one another. That means they each need their own protein skimmer. They each need their own heater. They each need blah, 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 right? Each need their own lighting, but six, half dozen. But once once they get going, they do really nicely. And some corals absolutely do better in those isolated things when they're not tied into some big giant system. Do you ever have issues with your house being next to your business? Weird people knowing where you live? Yeah, I guess. It is. I mean, then I guess the nice thing also is that it's slightly uncommon because we're not technically open to the public. We don't have a sign or anything. So it everybody in chat, whiplash, 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 whiplash. I had forgotten. I was like, backsplash? It's like, that doesn't sound right. It's whiplash. Yeah. Anthony, will cloves grow off the frag onto the sand? Cloves are weird. They're like strawberries. They send out runners. They might a little bit. They grow weird. I think they would like to grow really stringy onto rocks. I think that's their preference. I wouldn't expect them to do a lot with sand. Cloves are super weird. Who comes up with crazy names for corals? That's the internet, dude. Yeah, it's funny. We talk about this every now and again, right? It's like the freshwater side. They've been doing this for like a really long time, and they are like, it's like they're naming stars. It's like LG 428, and it's like a little catfish. Everybody knows what it is, right? Is it what LV 426? Is that like the planet that aliens happened on? Anyway, but then like the saltwater side, everything got named like the pot industry. Because my guess is there's a big overlap between the pot industry and reef aquariums. Just saying. I think there's a lot of enthusiasts that are the same person. And so anyway, we have a lot of like colorfully named corals. We don't have a lot of like serial number digits and stuff. And you know that's a valid criticism, because like sometimes that can be then used for branding. And so some folks, and I really don't have an opinion on this, and like some folks, they want to have their brand associated with a specific color morph. So even though there's like a well-known name for something, they're going to rename it just because they now have it in their possession. Whatever. My goal is to meet people where they are. So if somebody is looking for, we just saw a Mystic Sunset Montipora, well known, right? Season's Greeting Montipora, relatively well known. But there are like certain ones that are like bang on, that's what it is. And I want it so that when people search for that coral in Google, they find Tidal Gardens and they make their purchase with me. That is my sole interest. Also, another like slight perk to these names is that if somebody were to say, I have got a bright yellow Samacora with a slightly different colored lemony yellow rim that fluoresces more green in the center, like, let me stop you right there, homie. I didn't hear a thing you just said. when people start describing coral colors to me, I'm like, you're probably even colorblind. Like, none of this means anything to me. Like, literally nothing. It could be anything, especially with like zoas. Like, once you start to talk to me about zoa color, I'm like, dude, what? But if you tell me I'm looking for a Midas Samacora, like what I was describing could have been like the previous Samacora, could have been this one. I don't know. But when it comes to like zoas, no chance, right? So the goofy names help. And for whatever reason, we're not at LV426 to mean anything. Alan Brown calling out Kush corals. They just went, so that's part of their brand, right? I'm just saying, like, they're not the only dudes that smoke weed that have named a coral in this industry. So throw that right out there. And I'm not even casting judgment. Like, it's just not my thing. Like, everybody else has like these wonderful experiences with marijuana. I just don't. I'm the one missing out. Can you use freshwater tank? Use a freshwater tank for your oh God, I wouldn't do that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You want RO. No, Uncle Charlie, do not do that. Adrian, question on coral color stability. Got a red micro lord and it went rainbow within a month. Ever experienced something similar? Happens all the time, and it depends on what it is you're talking about. So micromusa lords tend, and certain chalices tend to be very color changey. Acropora, any little thing changes, that thing's changing color. Okay, Michael Beck, accidentally OD'd on flatworm stop. I had several fish go missing. Have you ever had this experience? Flatworm stop. Who makes that? KZ. Okay. I have never used their product. Some people like it. I've never heard of anybody overdosing on it. Missing fish, not a good sign. Yeah, sorry, dude. Expensive too. Okay, so this is an interesting question. So Motic82 is asking, especially when color shifts based off of lighting, care, flow, etc. I don't even trust photos online of new morphs because you can't tell them what their white balance is. Okay, so we're trying to do a lot with showing color change, and showing under different lighting spectrums on the website, all that fun stuff. Okay, that's great. But let me pose this question to you. It is entirely possible, especially like I said, with these corals that change color dramatically, micromusa, certain chalice corals, acropora, all that stuff, right? Sometimes that coral, depending on the time of year and what system it came out of, will be different than another one of the exact same type, even though it's at our facility. We're doing roughly the same husbandry. We're not looking to do two different systems. This coral just happens to be in two different places, and we use largely the same lighting, largely the same sort of filter, everything, right? We're trying to keep things stable across everything, but these two things don't look the same. Do I only sell the one that's most closest to whatever thing, okay? Whatever images that we're showing? Or do actually, let's just say, okay, these two things look different, but let's just say we sold out of the one entirely. We just have this guy here that's slightly different off color. I know that this thing has potential to regain its color to match better what we have displayed online? Do we sell it as what it is, right? That's just off color. Or do we make another name for it entirely, just so that when we shoot it and everything like that and sell it as a strawberry something 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 rather than the normal thing that it would normally be sold under, that there's no like dissatisfaction on the part of like the person receiving it because it is slightly off color. Because now you have the same thing being called two different names, but they are different. It's like there's like these little quandaries like that. My preference is to only sell one thing if it is in fact the same thing. But there's like debating philosophies on that, because if I send this, right, this coloration, when I've advertised this, even though I know they're genetically identical, this guy will be this. It just takes the right type, lighting and tank and all that stuff. It'll regain. It'll be fine. But it's just that initial opening the bag and being like, man, it's missing a color, that sort of thing. Should I just call it something else and sell it as something else? And then when that person receives it, they'll be like, this is great. I'm happy. That was a bit of a rant about coral names, right? Ty Culbert, Australia just waking up and catching the live stream. Welcome. Welcome. Yoshu, do you have any luck trying to propagate toadstools? Sure, they're fine. No, it's totally commercially viable. They're slower growing. The problem with what we face is a matter of space and neglect. So we end up with just a lot of them. And sometimes it's like, where are we going to put all these things? That's our main goal. Cutting them, not a big deal. How can I recover the colors in zoanthids? That's a loaded question. They seem to do better with lower phosphate. That definitely helped. Anything that you can do to keep them clean will help. So do you guys remember that whole Vibrant controversy where it was something else than what they said it was and blah, 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 right? Vibrant helps zoanthids stay clean. So stuff that does that function will help zoas. You can experiment with light, you can experiment with nutrient, but typically lower phosphate and keeping them clean will help out a lot. And ever so slightly higher nitrate might help. Sometimes zoanthids might down color if they're just kind of starved out. Acropora only exists in brown for me. Frankly, it might be healthier that way. Once you start to really tweak them down to certain aesthetics, you're kind of riding the razor's edge at that point. It can be challenging. All right, I'm going to finish up here. We have gone over time, guys. You've got an extra 20 minutes on me, but I'm going to finish up this chat, and we will go. I think the photos looped. They sure did. I'm about to lose my voice too, so there's that. Oh man. Does mushrooms change color? Yeah, a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit they do. How is the tank doing that's lit by the Vipar spectra? It's okay. It's fine. Red people eaters are actually Zoanthus gigantus, not Paleothot. Yup, I know. Yeah, it's actually an algicide, isn't it? It is. So the thing about zoas and pales, if you're ever wondering, 99.9% of the time, it's a zoanthus. There's very, very, very few paleothos in the industry. Roger saying, love your site and the way that you're auctioning your corals. I'm on my third try putting a tank together. Your site is very easy to help me understand this complex hobby. Glad I could help. Good luck. Tyler, we could watch you all day, I think. No, I'd put you asleep at some point. Brandon's like, thanks for the stream. Thank you for coming. Have you ever considered starting a podcast? I'm considering doing like a podcast studio right over there. We'll see. We'll see. I think I just want a podcast studio. I don't know if I actually want to do a podcast. Matt, got to meet you at North Dallas Aquarium. Wow, it's been a little while. I've had a 10-gallon saltwater tank. Well, I want to try branching SPS. Would you recommend? Seriatopora, Stylophora, Pocillopora, in that order. Okay, guys, that's it for me. I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna watch some collegiate American hand egg and give my cats some of their medication. So anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next time. Take care. Happy reefing.